right. There it is. It's Tuesday.
Who's driving today, Nick?
Hey, Jesus, take the wheel, buddy. Jesus.
Actually, I think that might be par for the course tonight.
Yeah, well, it's aptly entitled Sleep on this one. And I know if you're anything like me, you are feeling a bit sleep deprived today. I've been going on about 4 hours having the kid keep me around and alive and not sleeping, as it were.
Well, Paranormal Pickers is starting to be my child.
Yeah.
It's keeping me up, and it's a lot of work, I got to tell you, but it's something that's well overdue for us because we're bringing out the stories that we,
yeah, absolutely.
Just finally we finally have a vehicle that we can actually use to tell these stories. And this tonight is this one hooked me from the beginning, and it still has me worried today.
Yeah.
Just kind of like tense in a way. And
sure.
I'll get more into that as we move along this night.
Yeah. Well, prior to that, as is our custom, while we're welcoming people in, why don't we share a little bit about a week? I know it was last Thursday when we were back together the last time, as it were. But what's going on in your world over the last couple of days? Anything new, fresh? Anything you care to share about while we welcome the folks in?
Yeah, but it ties into the story actually, so I'll reserve that to when we switch into gear here.
You got it. Well, I'll give you a little background on mine then, since I didn't share too much last time, but a couple things.
You were fishing or laking or geese.
Whatever. I was picking is what I was doing. I might not have been paranormal picking, but I was picking. That's for sure. And that was great. I'm actually glad, speaking of which, that the weather is turning for the better, because it was a cold night that night. And, as the days turn, it's cold night every night. As the days turn and get a little bit better outside, things liven up around my home. The kid loves being outside. That leads me to a great story, actually, on the kids. So, as you know, but maybe the folks listening, wherever they are listening, maybe they don't know, but my kid, he's on the autism spectrum, right? And so with that, his social interaction skills are maybe not that of a neurotypical child. But at any rate, last night, he likes to take drives, and he goes picking with me. Well, we drove past where I went to high school back in DeKalb, Illinois, which is now a middle school. But at the time, there was maybe 100 cars parked out in the parking lot, and just kids and adults just walking to get into the building. Well, in his way, he waved me over, told me he wanted to stop. So I said, all right, we'll pull in there. And he was adamant about getting out of the car, seeing what was going on. So he hops out of the car. We go walking into the school. And mind you, this is 2 towns over. I don't have any skin in this game or in this school or anything. And actually, for another story, I was actually permanently banned from the building because I got kicked out of a wrestling meet years back, about 20 years ago. So I'm not even supposed to be in this building if you go by the letter of law. But anyway, I figure I got the kid with me. He wants to go in. We're going to go in. And he starts walking around, traipsing around, finds his way into the auditorium of the school. And the kids in there are having their spring sing. So he sits down, takes a seat, and he's enjoying and loving it, watching the kids do their thing, singing the songs, crowd auditorium. And at the end of it, when the lights come on, I'm seeing people that I grew up with, went to school with, and they come up to me and they say, well, Nick, nice to see you, but I didn't realize you had kids this age or that went to school here. And I said, I don't. I got this guy here who his idea of a rousing Monday evening is to go jump in and crash the spring sing party at the local school. And, that's the exciting life that Avery leads. But in true fashion of him being my kid, as they're getting ready to leave and the program's over, custodians are turning out the lights inside the auditorium, locking the doors up. He doesn't want to leave. He's like, let's just stay here. He's enjoying the auditorium. Well, we leave, but he walks the perimeter of the auditorium and finds the only open door to get back in. And so him and I sit in the dark in this auditorium for maybe 10, 15 minutes more, just so he can, enjoy it or whatever. And it just took me back. I was like, hey, this kid's starting off paranormal picking right now. He just wants to sit in the dark, wide open auditorium, got the ghost light on up on the stage. But that was fantastic. By the time when we got there, as I mentioned, there was like hundreds of cars. When we left, we were the only car in the parking lot. I'm like, buddy, you're going to get us kicked out for trespassing this time now. We're not supposed to get in school. But God bless him. I can always use the card that I'm like, hey, the kid's autistic. He just wants to do what he wants.
I could always use the card.
Hey, it gets us a lot of things. I think he uses it to his advantage too. But that's a little.
Did you lose your short bus license? I mean, you're not on the short bus anymore?
No, I can still take it every now and again.
Okay.
And he doesn't even need to be with me. I've got a lifetime reservation on that thing. And then secondly, from my end, what I got going on is about 14 days ago, I started, my nephew challenged me to a diet or a workout program. It's called the Hard 75. And in essence, all you do is, well, not all you do, it's tough, but you stop drinking alcohol for 75 days, you change your diet, and then you work out twice a day. And one of those has to be outside. So again, that's why I'm glad the weather is changing. But quick update, I'm down about 11 pounds, feeling better, tired and hungry, but outside of that, going all right on my end. Coming to you from the graveyard.
And sober.
Yeah, and so, well, that's a relative term. I mean, you are able to, I clarified, you are able to still take edibles on this thing if you want to. I'm like, okay, well, at least there's that, so I don't have to just completely.
I'm sure edibles are encouraged on some diets.
That's what he was saying. That especially if you're working out twice a day, it does. It helps to, for whatever reason, rejuvenate your body. Hey, I'm not a scientist. I'm just taking the advice. How about that?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but so that's that. I see we got a couple viewers on with us. I can't see the names at this point in time.
Greg and Laura are on.
Greg and Laura, welcome, Greg, Laura. Hey, homies. Hey, Laura. Hey, Greg. There's somebody else is making up the third spot here, but welcome as always. Like to thank you guys, thank the viewers, listeners, wherever you may be listening, whenever you may be listening, as it doesn't have to be live today and now. Again, Dean, prior to jumping in, I just want to thank StreamYard for giving us the platform. Thank YouTube and all your hard work that you've done for us so far with the past 4 seasons.
Episodes.
Episodes. Thank you for keeping me honest on that. But remind people that they can find us online via Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on our website. Dean, why don't you've done the magnificent work. If you wouldn't mind plugging the website or the YouTube site where these fine folks can find this information.
Well, it is Dean and Nick. No, it's ghostheadsoup.com because we are part of Ghost Head Soup. And they have the links to the Facebook page and the YouTube page for Paranormal Pickers. The YouTube page, after the live show, I do add additional footage, some creativeness to it. It's actually quite fun. I love doing it. A lot of time doing it, a lot of time researching for the show, a lot of time getting the story together. So I appreciate your thank you but it's fun. This is something that I've been trying to get together for a while, and I'm glad we got the format, like you said, to do so.
Well, and you don't get enough credit. There's a couple shout outs too. I mean, you one obviously to you, as I mentioned, but we've got folks that I've seen across the pond and other paranormal groups that have watched the YouTube channel, left some kind remarks on there as well. Just goes to show your hard work pays off, man. And, it doesn't go unnoticed. Yeah, it doesn't go unnoticed by me. That said, without further ado, hello again and welcome everybody to another exciting edition of Paranormal Pickers. With me, as always, the myth, the man, the legend, the Frank to my Mike, the Sonny to my Cher, Dean Thompson, Mr. Dean Thompson to you. And again, we're glad to have you along with us. This one is entitled S1E5 Sleep. And Dean, why don't you kick us off with just a little bit of ambiance, set the mood for us, set the story. What do we get?
He's paused, and there he goes.
Yep.
All right, I hear you. All right, so my Manili to my Vanilli, which is tying into how I started this episode, and as you've probably seen from past episodes, I'm one with synchronicities. I'm one with recognizing signs. I'm one with identifying signs and trying to put it all together. Sometimes it's haphazardly. Sometimes it's fun, like the yellow bird. This one seems a little bit more worrisome to me, actually. Don't know why. So I may seem tense at times. Tense at times during the show because the show is titled Sleep. And Easter Sunday, I was asked to work. I work a customer service job at the hospital. And as I was driving there, I noticed an old station wagon. Well, not old. 1990, I guess, is not that old, but it's about a 1990 Volvo station wagon pulling out of the gas station over here in town. And I'm like, wow, I haven't seen one of those for a while. And one thing that captured my attention was the back had a white box fan in it. And I thought that was odd to see a box fan in the back of a station wagon just by itself. So I kind of took that as that message was for me, because I'm the person that has a fan on them constantly while I sleep. I need a fan on me for some reason. I just like maybe because of my breathing issues. Who knows?
Is it the noise too? Does the noise help you out, or just the actual cooling of the fan and
the cooling of it, the noise sometimes, but given the right fan. But I like the constant. It's almost like my CPAP machine. It's kind of breathing issues and stuff, and it keeps the smoke circulating, the secondhand smoke that I have to endure. But anyway. So that night when I got home, I took some shelves out for the flea market. So I was rearranging my television. So I hooked up my television, and I just did the Wi-Fi. I didn't do the antenna. Hooked up a VCR of all things to it, and an old video game just to have it there, little flashback stuff. So then I have Paramount Plus, so I go on Paramount Plus and I start looking for shows to binge watch. And I came across the show Medium. Remember the show Medium with Patricia Arquette?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? I had a DVD of the one years ago, and I think I watched it and I kind of liked it. So I said, well, let me binge watch this. So I started with the pilot episode, and the first thing that I noticed is that she was dropping off her kids or driving something, and it was actually a 1990 Volvo wagon.
Oh yeah,
the same wagon that I just saw,
that you saw with the box fan. Mm-hmm.
At the gas station over there with the box fan. So I'm like, okay, this is where it starts, huh?
So you knew that you were supposed to be watching this.
Yeah, so of course I'm sleep deprived. I'm watching this show. I see things, and I don't know where it's going because it actually continued today, and the synchronicity. So out of the blue, I had this guy, a friend of ours, a ghost friend, that we helped with a couple of his stuff. His name is Brian. Well, he called me this morning, and I've been out to his house a few times, and the last time I was there, or the second to last time I was there, he had these guys that were doing lawn care, and he was looking to cut the grass, but he can't afford it because he wasn't working, blah, blah, blah.
I think my smoke's getting to you, and I'm not even there.
Yeah, right. So, so they stopped him and said, you know, hey, this is what I charge. He goes, no, I found somebody to cut my grass. And they're like, well, how much is he charging you? He's like, this amount. And he goes, oh, I want his name and number because I think he's short selling himself. And, you know, Brian's like, I'm not going to give you his number. But, you know, he mentioned that he doesn't have Rockefeller money.
Mm-hmm.
As he was saying that, I was looking at a newspaper clipping from 1916. You know, share my screen real quick.
Right. Well, as you're pulling,
I got a lot of newspaper things here.
As you're pulling that up too, I want to mention to the folks that are listening and watching, and you know, just my experience with you, Dean, in any of the investigations or picks, as it were, that we get on and go to, your synchronicities are always tied in together too. I mean, some of the later episodes that we'll get into, you know, you have a knack for just finding the spot, you know, whether we're on an investigation of an old murder site, whether it's just a ghost in a house or whatever, you have a knack for finding that. And I think certain things from beyond your control, or even in other realms, may be tying up, or, you know, causing that synchronicity for you. And of course, you're reading about Rockefeller's money while he's mentioning not having Rockefeller money.
As soon as he says, I don't have Rockefeller money, I'm reading that headline.
Yeah.
So as I got this story together, so back to the Medium show.
Mm-hmm.
So this girl, Allison, it's based off of Allison DeBose, or however you say her name, is her last name. Allison DeBose. She's supposed to be a psychic medium. Well, she can see the past, she can see the future, she has dreams, and a lot of her stuff that she has are dream related in the show. And so I started, my dreams have been pretty interesting lately, but as I'm getting this story, I'm noticing, even it's hard to say without, you know, make me look like I'm losing my freaking mind.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
It just seems like some of the spirits that are tied to this story are around me.
Sure.
We'll just leave it at that.
And that goes back to what I was mentioning. I mean, I think anytime you get involved in any type of haunt, they reach out to you and are using you as that channel to come through and tell that story. You know, not to throw another synchronicity in it, but I know where you used to work before, which was Chase Bank, right? Or Chase. But you probably know this. If you don't, I'm going to drop it on you anyway. JP Morgan, Chase, a lot of his money and his backing that started the bank came from Rockefellers, and the Rockefellers with their money.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get to that. It's a long story. It's a long not drawn out, but it's a twisted story. So I kind of wish there was like mood lighting or something like that.
There you go.
It was a cold and dark, windy night.
I'm in a graveyard. You're in the cold, dark.
Well, I'm thinking for a drum roll here. I like that dramatic pause that I do. Sometimes it's too long. So do you ever have a moment? Can you think back in your life where you said, I did this today that will affect somebody who lives in 3 states over in 20 years? Can you say you hit? Oh yeah, you did.
I mean, I can think of things like that, but it is, I mean, it's a stretch for me to put the two and two together, right? I guess.
Just say, if I turn left down Division Street, is going to affect a 3-year-old person that's living now 20 years from now. So 23, the reason why I turned left on Division Street, that person's affected by it. So you could actually have proof of that?
I mean, no, I don't have tangible proof. I suppose if to answer the question though, the way you're putting it out to me is, I guess maybe I look at it from like an act of kindness type deal, right? If I provided a random act of kindness to a stranger and it goes to the whole pay it forward type thing, in that aspect, perhaps it,
Well, not paying it forward, kind of like ripples.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like universal ripples, like we were to mention, like a butterfly effect or something, something with the wings, and just something changed something, or something. Your actions change something that is going to appear known to somebody else years later. So it's kind of the beginning of the story, anyway.
Okay, so you're going to the butterfly effect. I get it. What you may do now may affect what you what somebody else does 20 years from now, and in essence, very similar to the movie that had Ashton Kutcher in it, where it shows the whole butterfly effect and how it can affect folks. What your decision does now. In essence, the meaning behind the butterfly effect is the ripple from. The ripple effect caused from the butterfly's wings can cause a, in essence, a tsunami or a hurricane down the line. Just from that wind that comes out, that force can just keep snowballing and gathering and cause an effect, catastrophic.
And if you haven't seen it, a good example of that is the book or the short story in the movie called Sound of Thunder.
Okay, I have not seen that.
Oh, that's an awesome movie. It's a good flick. Good story too.
Yeah.
So to this story here, Sleep, when little Molly Kell, she was about a year and a half of age, her parents traveled from Canada to Colorado. The year was 1913, and the headlines at that time in April of 1913 was a triple murder that took place just west of Elgin, and a confessed killer, a young 14-year-old Herman Koppes, Coppes. Unless you have the ability to see into the future, like Nostradamus or somebody like that, I don't know if Molly's parents had that ability or reason to speculate that in 1929, Herman Koppes would impact their lives greatly.
I love the pause.
So in August of 1924, a convicted murderer, Herman Koppes, escapes an Illinois prison system. He goes towards Colorado, stopping and working in Iowa and Nebraska and the states along the way to get to Colorado. And he arrives there he escaped in 1924 August. So he arrives in Colorado sometime between 1924 or 1929. And in 1929, Herman has fallen in love, this time with young 18-year-old Molly Kell. Albert Huth. His name is Albert Huth to Molly. Molly knows him as Albert, but we know him as Herman. Albert was able to get Molly pregnant about the first quarter of 1929, so that's how I put the time frame together. And they were later married on May 14th of 1929. And they had 6 children, or the baby was born in November, so we knew, we knew it was first quarter of 1929 when they met or dated, and something happened, of course. We don't need to talk about the birds and the bees, do we, Nick?
Well, I mean, this is a TVMA show, so if we have to get into it, we can.
We were talking about butterflies, might as well talk about birds.
Yeah, add in some bees.
So they had 6 children. The youngest was born in 1942. In 1944, Albert's truth finally did come out. His identity was exposed. Pause for Nick.
So, well, what you're telling me, if I understand correctly, is this. If I understand the dates, this one here that he's with is an 18-year-old girl.
Yeah, and he was 29, I think, or yeah, because he was.
So he's 11 years her senior.
There was 11 years difference.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not like
29.
Yeah. So he was born like 1899, I want to say.
Okay.
So Herman, or Albert, was quoted to say that he had an uncontrollable impulse. So when Herman, we'll go back to young Herman, when he was 13, he stole $2 from a teacher. And this is basically the spark that started the forest ablazing. He was sentenced to the state juvenile facility in St. Charles, Illinois, the same building that Bad Boys was filmed in, from the movie Sean Penn, Bad Boys, that was based out of there. So here's a 13-year-old boy stealing $2. He's there for a year.
So the guy gets a year's worth of time in the juvenile delinquent center for $2.
Well, it's a little deeper than that, because his family was kind of, there's headlines that had there's newspaper articles about his parenting and his ancestry that says those two people should never had the ability to produce a kid. Yeah.
Right.
So after a year, he was paroled, and he was made to work on the farm of Emmanuel Sleep and Maud. And they had a family, young family, Ida, Orville, Sarah, and then there was an older daughter that I believe was working or out or school or something in Chicago. She was older. So he's staying on this farm now, or he's working on the farm, feeding the cows, taking care of certain things. So he's doing farm work still after a year of being, now he's paroled for stealing $2. So think about something that you might have done that you could have gotten in this kind of trouble, Nick.
Oh, listen, I'm very familiar with the St. Charles, as we call it, the bad kids home, or it was affectionately known in my family, because some people have the tales of the boogeyman. We had the tales of the juvenile delinquent center, right? And I can think of plenty of things that are worse than a $2 theft from a teacher that I did at school, even, that could have, I wouldn't say should have, because I mean, that's a little extreme, but could have, if that's the measuring stick, that could have landed me in the Sean Penn, as it were.
Right. Herman, now he's 14, finds a young Ida asleep on the farm, and he falls in love. She was 11 at the time, and when he tried to kiss her, well, that didn't really sit well with, Maud Sleep, the mom.
I can imagine.
So the girl's mom kind of threatened him and threatened to send him back to St. Charles. So if he did it again, basically. I'll send you back if you do it again. So $2 and a kiss. You're go to jail.
Right.
Do not pass go. Go directly to jail. $2 and a kiss. This kid.
That's some rough stuff to be stealing and end up in the folks home. Yeah, you're 14 years old. You're stealing a kiss. You're stealing $2, and people are threatening to throw you in. And you've already served a year of your life in the home.
Well, that's not all he found. He found $2, a kiss, and he found a pistol on the shelf in their cupboard.
So he compounded everything into that.
He found bullets for the gun.
I can see where you're going with this,
but he just wanted to have fun with the gun. There was no intention of shooting anybody, no intention of using the gun, just having fun with it. Mm-hmm. Kind of like what the kids are doing today.
Oh, of course,
just having fun with the guns.
Right. Because when I find a random gun at somebody else's house, that's my first thought is, well, why don't I load it? Why don't I shoot it? Why don't I just go out and shoot some cans with the thing?
True story, though. When I was a kid, 15, 16, one of my buddies opened up a car, looked in their glove box and found a gun and took it.
Yeah.
And he wanted to fire it. And I said, no. And it took a lot to convince him to throw it in the lake, and he finally did, or a pond. He threw it in the pond. I'm like, no, dude, seriously.
Yeah, you don't know.
For the love of that's all good.
You don't know where that thing's been and what it's been used for, and if you now all of a sudden you're using it just for fun, and somebody finds it, that can.
And just imagine the person that had a gun but now doesn't. Mm-hmm. that's a lot right there. Maybe we changed somebody's life 20 years later just by that effect. Yeah.
They've got exactly, you've got a good point there. They get in an emotional state and they think, oh, I've got this gun and I'm going to go grab it and use it. And, hey, it wasn't there for them to use. You may have saved some lives. You may have saved their own life, others' lives. You never know what the intention might have been behind that.
So, well, I wasn't around in 1913 because Herman, he came into the house and he was watching Mrs. Sleep, and he was quoted to say that this thought kept repeating in his head to shoot her, shoot her, shoot her, shoot her. And as she was asking him, are you hungry? Do you want some food? And she was in the pantry getting him some food. Herman pulled the gun from his pocket and shot her. Now, Maud, being shot now, was running through the house from the pantry to the kitchen, slamming the doors behind her, and he was firing at will. And one of the bullets kind of hit the door and went through the window. And then when he opened up the kitchen door, he found Maud on the floor, and he fired the last 3 shots into her.
So,
pause for Nick.
He's creating. So this guy's creating a general state of panic in his head. He's saying, "I didn't want to do this. I never had any intention." But he shoots her, right, once. She lives. She's running around the house, as I can imagine you would be if you were shot. And not only does he then find her on the floor, he proceeds to shoot her 3 more times and empty the gun.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's shooting randomly throughout the house, but
So the headlines were mothered murder with babies. There's more.
Okay.
Boy held in jail. Bodies of Mrs. Manny Sleep and children found in cistern of residence near Elgin. Left home week ago. Case has so many mysterious phases as to puzzle authorities. Suicide thought impossible. Husband talks of visions. These are the headlines. This action was in the news, has been in the newspapers for 3 decades since 1913. Of course, it's when I say there was 3 killings, we had Maud Sleep. Orville was 8, and Sarah was 2. And Herman saw them in the kitchen, or this is what he confessed, that he saw the babies in the kitchen, the kids in the kitchen. He didn't have the nerve to shoot them. So he went out and grabbed an axe and he bashed their skulls in, crushed their skulls in with an axe. And he dragged Maud into the cistern and the 2 babies. He wrote a note to go, he drew the gun in there as well. And he wrote a note that says, "Dear Papa, I have killed myself. Maud, sleep."
This is starting to sound a little bit more calculated as we go along here. I mean, so he finds the kids, and instead of just taking the easy way out and finish them off with the rest of them with the bullets, he takes the time to go find an object and bludgeon them after the fact. So he bludgeons the youngsters, shoots Maud, and takes the time to write out a suicide note for Maud, if I understand you correctly here.
Yep, he was held in Geneva. He had the cartridge in his possession, so that's why he was able to arrest him. Emmanuel Sleep was also a suspect, and another child that worked, another kid that was on parole there, working on the farm, was also questioned. So Herman was one of 3 suspects. And obviously, if you have a cartridge on you, you kind of, and the only person in the house at the time, but he killed the witnesses, the 2 babies. The 2 youngsters. So, so they passed they got murdered April 14th, 1913.
Okay, so just passed their anniversary here 5 days ago.
Mm-hmm. And that date comes up a couple times here for me, as you probably can guess. Once like I said, once I trip over a story, it kind of attaches it to me. So Manuel was kind of acting strangely since the murder, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it took him 5 days to find him. So Herman told the story where he saw Maud and the 2 babies go off into another direction, and that she'll be home later. And he was told to ask Ida to heat the oil and start dinner. So Manny thought that was true because she's probably doing this, but of course, over the course of hours and not returning home, that became worrisome. And then later it was discovered that, or Ida actually tripped on the cistern thing, and says she tripped on it. She said, "Well, what's going on here?" She noticed that the door was on wrong. So when they opened it up, they couldn't see. So they actually lowered a lantern down into the cistern, and that's when they saw the bodies. And awkwardly, Manny, the husband, started laughing.
Really?
Nervous laughing.
Of course.
I don't know. But it was written in the newspapers, kind of like Manny laughs at murders, So of course they're looking at, life insurance this. So all these conspiracy things started coming out and saying, Manny did this, and Herman confesses to it, and it just got
well, yeah, and it can get muddled up from there. And to maybe lend some credence to the man's reaction, I mean, that is where the term being hysterical comes into play. So then people hysterically, but you're in hysterics.
Ida's crying. What is he going to do? He's like, he probably wasn't even himself right there.
Yeah, no kidding. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Steve, who just jumped in. Steve says, "Hey, you sexy mofos." Or what's up, you sexy mofos? So
somebody as Nick disappears.
Yeah, I'm here.
So Steve's on, and I saw that Ron's on too, and that he's in a hospital. So hope you're doing good, Ron. Stay healthy, my friend. If you're at Northwestern, you might call me for dinner sometime. That's where I work. Might take your dinner order. I might throw in an extra pudding or something for you.
All right. Pausing for dramatic effect. Nick has to use the restroom. Carry on. I will be right back if you want to share media.
Well, while you're gone, I'm going to give Manny's account of what he went through during the 5 days.
Okay. I will be right back.
Okay. So this is Manny, the farmer, tells of his of the crime. So, and these are in quotes and kind of like a day by day conversation with the police. So he said he was seeding oats all afternoon. Stanley, the other guy that was a suspect, was helping him, and Herman was away at school. It wasn't until milking time that he did end up seeing him. They were in the milk shed together. He said that Mrs. Sleep around about 4 or 4:15 was asked to go to the neighbor's house, and that was the Martins, about a mile away. She told him to have Ida put on the calves meal and get supper for the family, and that she will be back. So Tuesday comes, and Manny's like, it's forenoon. She had not returned. Maud hasn't returned, so of course he was worried. She was supposed to go into Elgin to get some freight that was shipped from Chicago, but when she didn't get home, so she sent Ida, the 11-year-old, to check, and then her 11-year-old daughter met her older sister Haley in Elgin, and they realized that the mother wasn't around. And I think Haley actually didn't believe her at first. So still no signs of Maud and the kids. The next day, on Wednesday, they searched all over the place. He took Ida, and they couldn't find anything. He had to do something with the team of horses, I would imagine. Herman was at school. Stanley was busy, so he had to take care of some farm work. When Ida came to him crying and rolling on the ground in hysterics, he took her into the house to quiet her, and then again they took up the search for Maud and the babies. So, like I said earlier, they found some tracks by a nearby creek, woman's tracks it says, but there was no mark of baby shoes there. The tracks seemed a little big. Then he saw an object on a hill. It was just a blackened log. He basically just lost hope at this time, and he sat down and cried. He went around the neighbor's house, and no one's seen her or the children. They never reached Mrs. Martin's home. Thursday comes. He went to Plato Center for a load of corn, and he asked the man there if he had seen the woman or the two kids, and he kind of hinted that they had gone over to another place. So he hurried there, and he came across a blank-eyed woman who answered the door and said, no, she never came here. And by Friday, or all day Friday, Ida was crying. He couldn't do his work. He asked the boys to tend for the chores, and then he called up to Chicago in a long distance. Thinks she might have gone to a friend of theirs or a cousin of theirs just to check with relatives. Did you go here? And he heard nothing back. So kind of like his hysterics, he's working, he's trying to keep busy. No one knows where it's going. They haven't found him yet in the cistern. And then that night, Friday night, he said he went to bed and he had a bad dream, or a dream, I should say. Mm-hmm. This is him talking about his dream. He said I seemed to see a clump of willows, nice and green, and the birds were singing in the branches. Above the bushes was a hand, always pointing, pointing. I don't know what it meant. So I did look up some meanings for dreams, and to see a willow tree in a dream, it symbolizes mourning and sadness.
Well, think about it.
It
Like
also
weeping willow.
denotes a loss of it also denotes a loss of someone or something. Alternatively, the willow represents survival or rebirth. The dream of chirping and or flying birds represents joy, harmony, ecstasy, balance, and love. And the dream, sorry, the dream that someone is pointing at you suggests feelings of self-guilt or even shame, and that you are being accused of some wrongdoing. So his dream pretty much tied in what he was feeling at the time.
Yeah, you put it all together. He's mournful. He
Yeah.
can't find his family. He's being accused of some wrongdoings of his family, but at the same token, he's got to survive. He's got to push on, like you mentioned, anything he can do to take his mind off of it. He's working. He's, trying to go around and see if anybody's seen the kids or anything. So it makes perfect sense as to where his dream would tie into the symbolisms in his dream. And then real quick, Greg, as I mentioned, I put up here, he says talk about people being nuts today. I can imagine what he's getting at there. I mean, this guy.
Yeah, you and I.
Yeah, well, yeah, a pair of nuts.
Nuts.
Right. But at the same token, these folks back then, I mean, look, human nature is human nature, and we can't begin to understand the primitive nature of humans and what makes them do that. But good point, Greg. I mean, this guy, not the father, but the gentleman that perpetrated the crimes here, so to speak, he's certainly got a screw loose, in my opinion.
So Manny woke up the next morning, fed the cows at 4:30 in the morning, took care of breakfast. He went into the pantry to get some coffee, and he kind of looked at the door that separates the pantry and the parlor, and he saw a little hole. So that shouldn't have been there, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
He'd never seen it before, so he looked on the other side, and he saw a big chunk out of the side, found splinters on the floor. I just saw a small piece of the corner of the window and the floor. There were marks of blood recently washed up, and the blood drops led toward the cistern. So that's kind of when they realized, oh, what's going on here? So he said that he took the cover off, he took the cover and held the lantern down of the cistern. It was pretty black down there. He couldn't see too much. He kind of had to clean the globe of the lantern. Still couldn't see anything. He got a rope and lowered it down further. He shook the rope a little and found them.
So for those that are listening at home that may not know what a cistern is, can you give a little bit of insight as to what you mean when you say a cistern?
Well, it would be a hole in the ground that could hold I know at the old school we had a cistern that held water for the showers or toiletries. So
it could be a reservoir.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, Manny said,
"Hold on a second. Just pause right there for a second, because if this is, I mean, that just took a grim turn in my head. Okay, so if it's a cistern, and we're using it for the purpose that you just mentioned, that they had at the school.
This is a cellar. This is
okay. Let's imagine it's trapping, using it for coal or water or whatever. But just real quick, if they are using this to shower in, and they've been showering in their dead kids' remains, if that's the case, like that's where my mind, like that's sad.
I don't know. Was it in 1913? I mean, did they have shower?
Gosh, I hope.
Maybe they took baths in that little, metal tin, that metal tub over there.
Sure.
The horses drink from.
Yeah, the horse trough. Either way, you're getting the water from somewhere. And let's imagine, you're getting your coal, you're getting your water. Some type of supply is coming from this, because that's the whole purpose of the cistern. It's some type of storage for something that you're going to need, whether it's preservation of food, preservation of water.
Okay, so Nick, I'm going to have to cut you off.
Okay, go ahead.
Because you're acting like Manny did. Because his quote was, "I laughed.
Right.
For a minute, I didn't know what else to do." And that's what you're doing. You're just trying to picture the scene and trying to rationalize it, because you can't rationalize it. Because you, as a father, would never think to find your kids bash skulls in the cistern with his wife.
Right. That's like me going to the sump
You
pump.
would lose your freaking mind.
Yeah.
He was glad that they were found, obviously.
Sure. Gives
but,
closure.
You know, and of course, Ida was losing her mind. Ida actually ran and threw herself on her mom. So he couldn't realize it at first what had happened. He walked from the house. He looked at the sky, the green grass in the woods, but all he could see was a dead face of his wife and his babies. He threw himself on the ground and just sobbed. They found the revolver in with the bodies. It was a .38 caliber. The axe was actually put back in the woodshed. And Manny said that they didn't even look at it closely before.
Right.
They found a little blood on the handle, so they noticed blood on the handle. They said that Ida, among them, that cops had a revolver at school that Monday. There was a story in the newspaper that said he wore it in a sweater jacket, and when he was reciting in school, some kids noticed it in his pocket, and he said it was a pair of pliers. And he said, and Manny even said, well, maybe it was, because he did use pliers that Sunday night. So he liked Herman. He thought, he didn't know if Herman was guilty or innocent. He had hoped that he didn't do it, because he's always been good to him, and he sent him to school, and he liked. And then Manny came to the realization that they said that his wife committed suicide. Of course, he said she couldn't do that. First, because each of the wounds would have been fatal, and that there was no way for her to put herself in the cistern, and then the two bodies, and then write the note. It's just like, it just made.
Well, forensically, sense. I can see where that doesn't make sense, because if she was there first, let's call it, and then the other two stacked on top of her in such a way that you're not gonna off your kids and then off yourself and then stack them on top of you, or however they may have been laid out. But I can understand where you're coming from
right. And they did a handwriting analyst. They had Herman write, and his was the closest.
Yeah.
So back to Herman's family, they were labeled unfortunate family. His mother was referred to as defective mentally and morally, and that she was just one of those helpless and harmless individuals who helplessness and harmlessness attracted the aggression of stronger and unscrupulous members of the social group which she lived. I mean, they're just talking about her parents, and that it actually says that it mentions that Herman's parents should never have been allowed to marry.
Yeah.
Based off of their mental.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a string of unfortunate events that led to this. It goes back to your butterfly effect that you mentioned at the beginning too. I mean,
if that was told today that people couldn't have babies, Maury Povich would be out of freaking business.
Right? That is true. That is. Well, I mean, you can still think there are certain people today too that situation dictates they shouldn't. Doesn't mean they won't or don't, but situation would dictate that. But yes, we're talking a time of politically incorrectness, or at least less than where we're at right now. So absolutely, to your point.
So yeah, in Herman's character, it didn't affect him. He just say, Mrs. Sleep saw me kissing Ida, told me that she was going to whip me. He didn't like Mrs. Sleep, and he liked Ida awfully much. He
a little too much.
Yeah. He would just talk in newspapers. He would talk to newspapermen, and he was getting used to the crowd. So he was kind of getting used of kind of the notoriety that he was getting for confessing. He said he didn't do it. He said he did do it. He kept going back and forth. His parents basically said that his son wouldn't be able to do that. Well,
what wouldn't, you know?
Yeah, obviously. He could, he wants more. He's eating good, blah blah blah. And there was one quote here that I thought was pretty powerful because let me find it here. All right. So when he was in jail, he was shackled, and one of the deputies' wife came in and seen him shackled, and she's questioned, shackled like a mere animal? Why does a 14-year-old child have to be shackled? And the Deputy Sheriff Germain smiled, changed, he was smiling at the time, to a saddened grin and told his wife that it had to be done for the child's safety. But he quickly changed his tune and snapped at his wife. He murdered 2 babies. Is that good enough reason? And the deputy, it says it in the newspaper, the deputy quickly apologized and pulled Mrs. Deputy in real close to him, and he whispered to her, he killed 2 babies.
Well, think about that in dramatic
He didn't
effect.
kill 2 babies. He cracked their frickin' skulls open.
Right. He went beyond what and I can't say normal.
And he crept up behind them because he didn't want the babies looking at him. That's why he couldn't shoot them. So he grabbed an axe and smashed them while they weren't looking because they were the only eyewitnesses.
Bludgeoned 2 of them because he didn't have the guts to look them in the eyes when he did it. Now, mind you, to the Mrs. Deputy's point, he is just a 14-year-old kid, but at the same token, he is acting in ways that we would say, equate to an adult. And, if you know the whole story, yeah, I mean, I would have shackled the kid too. That was good. Right. Well, I'm putting myself in the story. Like you said, being a dad, I'm putting myself in this story and trying to think of what I God bless and hats off to the father of these folks, because to carry on and try anything. But I mean, I would be beyond consolation or consoling.
So Herman's character, he of course was found guilty. They took him to Joliet prison. He's known. His name comes up in a couple of books out there as being the youngest person to be prisoned in Joliet. So he's in prison. Manny ends up finding Mary Bird, I want to say her name was. So, what year was that? So he weds Mary Bird not too long after the murder, and brings her home there, and she kind of doesn't really want to be there, and it is just difficult times. He's like remarried, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we're at 8:30 already, and
sure,
we're on the path of Herman and Maud story here. So Manny has a whole different story altogether. And Herman's story, of course, how he was jailed, and his character speaks volumes over the course of the time he's brought to jail. They stop and got a sundae. Did I say that already? They got some ice cream on the way onto the prison before he gets in there.
No, you didn't mention that. So they treat the kid to a snack. Not only, I give my kid ice cream when he's been good. These guys, hey, you just murdered a couple folks. Why don't we stop and get
Right.
Sunday? Yeah. Real quick, I know you want to move into the paranormal aspect of it because that.
Oh no, this is more.
Fair enough, but I mean, you may get to it, but I'm dying to know. And if you are going to get to it, just stop me. But I'm dying to know the fate of Herman. What happened to him in prison? How long was he there? Was he executed? What?
He got life in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of him staying there, he was a modeled citizen. He was studying in there, and he was able to work on a farm. So he would leave the jail and work on a farm. Well, one day, him and another guy just started walking, got in a car, and escaped. That was in 1924. So back to my earlier thing, in 1924, they escape out in a car, make their way into Chicago, and just found their way through Iowa, Nebraska to get to Colorado. And he ends up meeting Molly Kell, changes his name to Albert Huth, has 6 children. This guy has life parole. He's got a family now. And to this day, still, the family's out there, known by Huth. It's
Sure.
The last name is not a real name. It's a
Fabricated last name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was drinking at the time when they so Molly was going for a divorce, filing for a divorce from Albert, aka Herman.
Mm-hmm.
And he was applying for jobs, and he applied for a military job to help build ships. And of course, that's when they realized who he was. So in 1944, he was in jail, and he actually was in jail prior to that, and no one knew that it was Herman Cops. Escaped prisoner from,
Right.
Well,
God bless the
Illinois.
advent of modern technology, in that aspect there too.
So he finally was brought back, and Molly didn't really care. So I didn't know anything about it, and I honestly don't care. I mean, obviously she hated him.
Sure.
Because of abuse, and I guess he abused one of the daughters. Just being abusive. But that's the story of Herman leading up to that. And then he was brought back to jail. And there's more to that. But I had to question why he went to Colorado. So when Herman was arrested, and there was an incident at a mine out in Colorado where Mother Jones was actually involved with John D. Rockefeller. I mentioned that earlier. And so Mother Jones was so adamant to try to get a life for life. So a young boy of 14, 16 or something like that died in a mine accident out there. And she felt it, her need to, this innocent boy who was killed, she felt that she should save Herman Cops, or she was actually looking around for somebody in jail to save, and Herman was the one that screamed out to her, said, "No, this is the kid that I think I need to replace life for life." So she tried to use Rockefeller's money and get everything taken care of to get him out of there, but the judge never approved his parole or anything. He didn't go, and then all of a sudden he escapes. And he goes to Colorado, where this whole thing took place. So I'm questioning to see if something really did take place where he was catered over to this.
He was
which would
assisted to
be
get out of.
assisted this kid. I mean, doing good, but still,
Mm-hmm.
this man fathered 6 kids, abusive towards people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what? How does that sit with somebody? But
Well,
don't answer that.
no, but the whole yeah, I know what you're saying, but the whole thing just it befuddles me. You got this person who committed this heinous act with and on a farm with farm equipment and a gun, and you have him on work release working on a farm around other folks, and then to your point, potentially was he aided in escaping to getting to Colorado?
Yeah. I mean, here's this person that, I mean, it's just blows my mind that this guy's life sentence and has a family. It's mind blowing. Just the story that we come across. So where do I go next? I mean, it's basically there's more to it.
Right.
Of course, he comes back there into jail, and I'm trying to find the article that I just saw yesterday. Not an article, but he was involved in a gang-related incident that took place at the jail. He tried to escape, and that was in 1944 or 49, something like that, because he returned in 1944. Got into gangs, and I think one of the person got shot, and actually a deputy or a guard got shot too and killed. So I'm just trying to find this because there was more to a story here. So you want to talk for a second there?
Yeah,
Nick?
death, destruction, and bad things just seem to follow this man around. If I'm understanding your story here, and you get a guy who was locked up, supposed to serve time in prison for life, escapes, gets out to Colorado, starts a life of his own. God forbid, you and I know of what's his name, Jeff Mudgett, right? And I can only imagine finding out that you're related to H.H. Holmes. Well, these kids, or as the adults now and then their descendants, I'm sure some of them, hopefully not all of them, know the history and the background behind their father. And imagine having to live with that as you go forward.
So there's 3 books out there. One by... Nope, not that one. Is this it?
One by somebody other than that guy.
I want to get her name because I found she wrote a book about the prison, the hunt. That's not her. Gosh, dang it! Let's take.
Trying to give the shout out, and it's a dramatic pause for the shout out here of the book, but.
I know. But
no, that's okay. In Dean's research, he's found these items to be extremely helpful, and I can understand why you would like to cite this information and make sure if those who are listening, folks watching, may want to find the information for themselves and find a little bit more out about our friend Herman / fake name /
yeah. So the thing is that I don't have records to the Joliet prison records,
Yeah, because I don't think that they would release those for minors.
Right. So I did find when I was searching Google that there's a book called Joliet Prison Blues, A Century of Stories by Amy Kinzer Steidinger, Steidinger. And at the end of that, or at the end of Herman's story, I found out what actually happened to Herman, which I was kind of wondering myself here.
Yeah, I'm glad, because that brings the closure to myself, because I'm like, whatever happened to this elusive gentleman? And John, I use the term gentleman very loosely.
So he, of course, came back. He was 1944, came back, admitted that he was Herman. And then in 1946, and I'm quoting from the book, so thank you, Amy. In 1946, Cops was discharged due to psychiatric division was discharged to the psychiatric division. 14 years later, in November of 1960, he was ordered paroled.
Really?
He was released to the home of his nephew, Jack, on December 9th, 1960. 4 years later, it was noted on his prison record that his parole period was complete.
So now he's a free man.
According to the Social Security Death Index, Herman Donald Copps died on June 1978 in Denver, Colorado.
I don't see any justice in this entire story here. I was waiting for a payoff, like, hey man, this mofo just ended up getting jacked in prison, and somebody found out what he did and took the broomstick.
A life for a life.
Yeah,
a life for a life.
Yeah. Now, I'm trying to put two and two together. Does it state his age when he passed away?
Well, 1978, so he was born in 1899. So.
Okay, so he was 80 years old, roughly.
70.
Yeah, let's call it 80. And you get up in age, and you're in the psychiatric ward at that point in time. Sure, he becomes a burden to his nephew, but I mean, still, there's just there's no justice in that story at all.
Yeah, a life for a life.
Well,
maybe Mother Jones had something to do with that.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, going back to your synchronicity and what I always, what I started out at the beginning, how I say you you find your way into these things, and the spirits tug and pull at you. I'm not preluding your evidence or any of your investigations or anything that you've done in this, if you've been to this location. But the way I would love for it to work out up here is that Maud and everybody else has been reaching out to you to get that closure and get their story told, right? So they want to get their story out and they found a voice in you to do that. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on, if you've been there, when you visited, what you came up with, and that may tie into that.
Tim and I actually we did find a location from a map, so we did go out there. It's now a subdivision with a golf course. And for some reason, I was down in that area. And, I kind of go with my feelings. Like, if something pops in my head that says, oh, take this route, I don't question it. I take that route.
Yep.
And I found myself at this location. So I'm like, oh, well, crap, I'm here. I got a few moments. I can stop, and I have my equipment on me, an Ovilus or whatever, or camera. And I walked out into the field where maybe the house was. You can't really tell anymore. But there is an empty field there, and it should have been close to the road. And the house actually did burn down in 1939. So just to give you that idea. So when I'm out there talking to Maud or whoever, seeing if there was any spirits, I get home, upload my files, and I noticed the date was April 12th. And the date that they got murdered was April 13th. So it was like, wow, I was able to go on that property just the day before.
Right.
Minus leap years and all that other stuff. It could have been the exact, whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, you're in the general area of anniversary on that.
Yeah. So that's that location in Elgin. Now, Maud's family was from Aurora area. So Maud is actually buried in Spring Cemetery. So, of course, I'm going to Spring Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And when I find her grave, I notice that she is buried away from her children and her tombstone's facing the opposite way.
Okay. And for
So
those that don't know what that can signify.
yeah, so I was looking up some stuff, and I did find that if someone commits suicide, they are buried away from their children. They're buried away from their children. The upside down thing would also maybe indicate that, but more so buried away. So she is buried away. I do have a picture of that area. So actually, when I'm pulling that up, I did go out there and I was using my Ovilus at the time. And a word came up, and I forgot the word for the life of me. But I said, "Who do you know who killed you, Maud?" And the word came up, say rabbit or something like that, so some silly word.
Mm-hmm.
But the audio, when it's enunciated through the machine, it sounds like Herman.
Okay.
I mean, I swear, I was like, "Holy crap!" And I actually thought it said Herman, but it said a different word. I'm like, "What?" I was like disappointed. So this is Dean at the Spring Lake Cemetery. I have an Ovilus 3 here outside of Maud Sleep's cemetery. For some reason I can't see the display, but the first word that came up sounded like... That wasn't it. That, again, this is the word. This next word is the word I'm looking for. To me it sounded like Herman. Did Herman kill you? Did Herman kill you? There's a tractor coming. Yeah. It's making the noise. Oh shit, there's another big truck coming. Yeah, he's good. Well, did you just say Herman? Turn it off. Now I can see the words. So let me go back here. Okay, it says think. The word was think, but it doesn't sound like think. It sounds like Herman or person or human or something. But then a leaf fell right in front of me at that moment on her grave.
On her gravestone.
Yeah.
And I could see that just me speculating here, but audio and visual, the fact that it came up, here we go. The fact that it came up and you audibly heard what sounded like Herman, I could see that where that would be, it could have been Maud trying to say Herman and the machine picked it up as Rabbit.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
You know.
So that's Orville and Sarah, died April 14th, 1913.
Such a shame.
So it was April 13th that I went to that farm.
Okay.
I had one day off here. So that's Orville. So you notice how far away the mom is and that her tombstone's upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So, insult to injury. We know that she didn't she didn't commit suicide. We know that she was murdered, Herman or not. I mean, it has to be Herman.
Right.
And so, to kind of end the story on a good note and to validate Maud and for me to tell the story.
We're about to have a special guest. I apologize in advance. Here comes my son just to give you a heads up.
And
But carry on.
To participate in this story and Maud's memory, I was able to, I actually recently, I wonder if I could share it. I guess I could share it. Let's see here. One moment. Am I sharing still? Hold on. Something that I do is
there's no sharing.
Stop sharing, it says. So one thing that I do, I mentioned this before, is find a grave. So the other day I took it upon myself to send an email to Spring Cemetery. And I said, hello, or I went to, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. I'm telling you, a tense.
Hey, this is great though. I mean, you've got great emotions coming through here, and this is just a fantastic way to, tell the story. So take your time, take all the time you need.
It just feels like just things around me are kind of just, could be sleep deprivation, who knows. But so I sent the email, I went to find a grave and found a person that was related to the Sleep family, and that she found the story. She wanted more about it. I reached out to her, but I haven't heard back, so I don't know if she's even still around. But so I sent a message to Spring Lake Cemetery in Aurora, and I said, hey, my name is Dean, reaching out to you today to see about correcting a grave marker in Spring Cemetery. And this was just March 25th this year. I sent it. I said the anniversary date of Maud's Sleep death is April 14th. Maud and her two children were murdered back in 1913. It was stated earlier that she left a suicide note, later to find out that this was false. It is said that if someone commits suicide, the grave marker would face the wrong direction. It turns out that Maud's marker is facing the wrong direction, and she is buried away from her children. I was hoping to see what we could do about correcting the marker. Would it be possible to turn the stone? A little about me. I came across this story as I began investigating the paranormal. I like the spiritual and historical side of it more than the urban legend side. I have created a video to tell the story. So there is a Maud Sleep video, Herman Kopp's video on our Ghost Head Suit YouTube page. So I sent this at 2:13 that afternoon, Friday that afternoon. I got a reply back almost like at 2:21. And it's from Kathy, and she goes, I will put a work order in for this to be looked at. If it is facing the wrong direction, we will fix it. I like hearing about the families that are buried here. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that alone is fantastic. Just the fact that, one, you were able to reach out with the story that you've taken. And my goodness, we took an hour and 20 minutes, and I felt like I've been listening to you for 5, right? Like, it's such a great story. And then secondly, that you got a response back so quickly, and they're looking to take any type of action that they potentially can off that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's it blew. I figured, well, crap, if it was that easy, I would have sent an email long ago. I thought maybe I would have to, get some money, do some fundraising, try to get the work order, try to get them to do it.
No kidding.
Yeah, but it sounds like they work off of volunteer and donations and stuff like that, and they keep the cemetery really nice. So here's a picture of Herman. So I'm just going to show some pictures here as I go along.
Any idea as to Herman's age in that photo?
14.
Okay.
That's when he was arrested. So this is all
It was basically his mugshot.
1913. So this is kind of the picture that was portrayed in the newspaper. You have young Herman here. You got Manny, Maud, and Ida.
I don't like to pick on anybody's appearance, but young Herman, just looking at him, you can almost tell something might be a bit off with the kid. Just now I know the story, but in taking what I know and taking a look at that picture, you can kind of see some darkness surrounding the guy.
I wish it was a lot faster to share here. Click, 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 click. But as far as evidence, that's Herman. And then I'll show you a picture of Albert. So other than evidence here, I mean, as far as paranormal, the fact that the spirit world is kind of throwing signs at me, and hearing Herman, I didn't get too much at the site, the farmhouse. Hopefully by moving the stone, I would like to have somebody come out and maybe say a prayer, because we're not going to exhume the body and move her closer to the children, but
Sure.
maybe have somebody come out there and reunite them in prayer, or do something. I know there's possibly they can dig a little trench between the two, fill it up with something that's symbolic that would represent the connection between mother and children.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping that could be the next step, which would be awesome.
Yeah, something that would signify linking them together. Some chains, something along those lines that ties the two kids along back with the mother. That would just, I mean, to me, that's the kind of justice I was looking for. And so, yeah, look at this guy, man. I mean, come on.
That's 1944, Herman.
Yep, I certainly wouldn't have paroled this man.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. Actually, this is actually not a bad picture. And, there was conversations back and forth about he's too young. There was one side that said, shame on you. Another side that said, oh, this kid should be, So it was back and forth. And it's a story of the times, it's just, and it went on for decades. And this is kind of the police questioning him. That's him right there.
Sure, you can say he's too young, and I can, I've watched enough investigation discovery in my day to, say, yeah, he's young, but at the same token, your acts and how you proceed in life is what really is going to give you that justification. And maybe he should have had a parent in there or somebody, but again, you already gave the description on his parents. If they were deemed unfit to have him in the first place, they probably wouldn't have done any help having him in with the investigation and the questioning as well,
That's a cistern. That's where the bodies were thrown.
Looks like what we would maybe quantify today as even a storm shelter, to take shelter for tornadoes or inclement weather, what have you.
Yep. We could go a little over 9 o'clock. Hope you can, but just sharing some of the pictures here now that we're kind of got the base of the story. So that's the Scene of the triple murder near Bow Station. So if you're researching it, that's kind of where it's at.
I'm guessing this would be somewhere modern day Pitney Bowes Road. Just taking a guess.
You got it, buddy.
Yep.
You got it. And you probably drove by it many a times and didn't even know.
I used to work right next to it all the time, so that's kind of an
Just
idea.
telling you what I wrote up on the thing. It says you don't know what you're driving by. It's a new subdivision, but you don't know what was. So
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
Now you know where I got that. you kind of relate to that now, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Well, and that, while you're doing that, that's the whole purpose of what you and I do. I mean, that's why we wanted to share on this platform, because that's the whole purpose of a paranormal pick. You never know the history of a place until you dig in and find the history of the place.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a subdivision right now, a townhome that was was brand new when I built it. But what was it before? I'll save that for another time. Never mind. I got a whole nother history on the place that I live in.
And just to go back earlier about my friend Brian calling me today and having that strange Rockefeller, this is what I was reading when he said, I don't have Rockefeller money. So it kind of says here, John D. Rockefeller thinks so. He's trying to obtain, or can the Rockefeller millions give a life for a life? So it tells you he's trying to obtain the freedom of Herman Cops, granted the worst boy in the country.
Wow.
And under life sentence.
Worst boy
and
in the
here
country.
It talks about the Harry Snyder, victim of the Ludlow mine riots, and he was called the best little lad. So from the worst to the best, a bullet got into the heart of the 12-year-old Sydney boy on April 21st, 1913.
It's around the same time frame, too.
About the same time. And they wanted to have cops life for life, man. That's just and this is in Colorado. The mine's in Colorado. That's it's just it just you got to think for a second, like, wow, maybe the escape wasn't just by chance,
Well, yeah, good point. Who just randomly swings by and picks up two prisoners?
Well, I think they took the car.
Oh, they stole the car. Okay, I thought you were saying they got picked up and took in a car. Never mind. But even so, I mean, leaving a car out in that area seems like there could have been some aiding in that. Rockefeller sure would have had the money to conspire such a plan.
So murder escapes from prison in Aurora. Herman Cobbs, who at 14 was sentenced to serve a life. Escaped from the prison honor farm Sunday. Was learned today. Cobbs was the youngest person. Okay. Young Cobbs always maintained that he had no reason for killing except the uncontrollable impulse.
So I want to point out something here, just because my reading and my OCD goes back to that. Bring that one back up, if you don't mind. It's just a tidbit on mine that, record keeping, date keeping, what have you, right? So you looked at their tombstones. Then on the tombstones, it said April 14th. In the newspaper, they reported here that the crime was committed April 17th.
Oh, yeah, that's... well, he was sentenced and committed April 17th. So it says he was sentenced and was committed to the jail on April 17th.
No, it says the crime for which he was sentenced was committed April 17th. So it's saying that he committed the crime, if I read it correctly, not to cause an argument, but if I read it correctly, it shows April 17th.
And that's true. And that's, oh my God, this case would drive you crazy, because in 15 different newspapers, he's 14, he's 16, he's 17, he's 18. So I mean the age is just,
you got to take a little artistic creativity with it, when it comes to it. So I completely understand that. So
just keep it to April 1913, you'd be good. Oh man, but yeah, I haven't heard back from the cemetery to see if if the work order was completed. So I'm hoping to check it out. But I'm telling you, there's just so much about this case and so much about this young boy and just so much about, but not enough about Maud.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well, I mean,
that's
again,
what I do. That's what I
Mhm.
want to do. I'm urban legend. You can go to any place and say, "Oh yeah, this tombstone's bleeding blood," or
Mhm.
"This statue's crying," but do the due diligence and keep going for, this. There's a reason why we're there. Do your
Mhm.
due diligence. This is
Yeah.
another one. It says Boys to March on Capitol. 20,000 planned crusade in behalf of cops convicted of murder. So this is 20,000 people to march. Isn't that crazy?
The 20,000 man march.
Yeah, a boy crusade on behalf of Herman cops. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's just Rockefeller money.
The man can buy anything that he needs to.
Yeah. Let's see here. What else can I bring up?
All right. Any closing thoughts on your end? As I've got the kid here who's obviously hungry. He's been asking me for dinner for the last 15. So I'm.
Oh, so make us feel guilty for
You're right.
starving
I'm not making you feel guilty. I'm just looking on my end. You're more than welcome to stay on and share the stories as long as you would like. But I'll give you my closing thought. One, as I mentioned throughout the thread here, I'm glad that the justice that is undone or left at the moment, you're making strides towards that, right? I was completely left in awe or sickened by the story of Herman and how he kind of got away with it in a roundabout way. But I think you sparked my idea here for a future episode, or even, wrapping up the season as we go. We can give updates on any of the past episodes like this. We can give an update on Maud and your response that you may receive from the cemetery.
I can do a report from my padded cell. When they lock me up for going crazy because if
dim the lights again, man. That's right.
If this stuff continues, and I know Greg was on or is still on or something, but I know that just watching that Hellier documentary,
Mm-hmm.
and when I did watch it, I had synchronicities throughout that played with my brother's death.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared that with his girlfriend, and just a lot of stuff ties together, or you can relate to it in the time stamps and dates and stuff. But
Absolutely,
that's what you look for. That's why when I see stuff like that, I know I'm in the right spot at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't let it sink in too much. But this one here, I think there was. I think there's people, spirits, closer to the veil, so to speak, that kind of maybe doesn't like what I'm doing. I don't know. It just seems like there's just somebody there that's not happy.
Well, that's just Avery. That's all. That's the. Right. Well, fantastic show as always. I'm glad we took the time to put everything together. You, again, kudos to you for everything that you're going to hear commotion now. But
no worries. It's just my life.
Right, but fantastic, and kudos. Thank you again to everybody who joined us this evening live, and again to everybody who may listen in the future on YouTube or any other platform we have. This is me signing off and muting. You may sign off as well.
I would also like to say thank you to everyone, and hopefully get out there and do your due diligence in the field and follow through. I know Laura, you and I have been doing that as of late as well. with our trip out to Randolph County, we focus on the spirits that were there and the stories that are told. And I know over the course of researching some of these places, when you go to these pay-to-play places, you find that some of the stories that they tell you, at the end of the story, they're like, well, we don't have anything to support this, but this is what people claim. And I'm like, I just paid, I can read a book, a fiction, and get the same thing, so I'm like, and here we are using our invested time to record paranormal history or paranormal evidence through use of our devices. And we're asking for Joe Blow, who doesn't even exist, but yet this person said that Joe Blow might be there. Why am I asking for this person? And, maybe researching the place that you're going to, getting the history of it before you go there. And I know I mentioned this on Greg's show, you and I, when we were on there, about the Monroe House in Hartford City. It's like, if you go, I watch every video. I try to watch every video that ghost hunters do at that location. And if I can timestamp when stuff happens, on what day, I can get a sense of when to go there next. Because I do like that place. I've been there 3 times, maybe 4. I don't even know anymore. It just seems like my home away from home now. But it's close, it's nearby, and it's just, you have the place all night. And that's for another paranormal picker, or as we labeled it earlier, pair of nuts.
Just a cute pair of nuts, man.
Yeah, that'll be for another episode. So again, we got so much to talk about. Appreciate you guys. I know we're running 10 minutes over, but this story just screams, and it's going to keep screaming. This story will continue way past
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, speaking of screaming, that's the dog that time. But
that ain't no beagle.
All right, I am going to sign off. You have yourself a wonderful evening, Dean. And again, everybody back at home too. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, ending broadcast. See you guys. Oh, hey. Wow. Oh, hey everyone, it's Dean from Paranormal Pickers. Oh, I got the preview for the next episode. Oh, yeah. Here, take a peek. Oh.